Hey guys, welcome back to YouTube Mommy Meetup to our live hangout. I am Dana, Miss Diaper D, and I have with me, as always, Diana from Being Mommy with Style. Go ahead and give a wave. And also, we have Amy from Dreamflight 6000. And then we have our random guest winner for tonight, which is Sandra from The Thrifty Mommy. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then I will introduce Leah and why she is here tonight.
Hey guys, I am Sandra. My channel is The Thrifty Mommy on YouTube. I have 3 boys, and I kind of do vlogs about a little bit of everything in our life, about my kids and our daily life and our grocery hauls and everything thrifty.
Okay, very cool, and thank you for being with us tonight. And then we were supposed to have another random guest with us who won the drawing. However, she has bronchitis. So Leah was able to jump in last minute with us, and I will let Leah go ahead and introduce her channel. She's been with us before. She was a previous guest on the YouTube Mommy Meetup channel. So go ahead and introduce your channel again, Leah.
Hi guys, I'm Leah, and on social media and here on YouTube I am Raising Bushes, where I feature information about homeschooling, frugal living, and just our growing family of 5. And thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I know, thanks for coming in so last minute, so awesome. And tonight we're going to talk about privacy and also safety, and this is like a topic that comes up very often. We get, like, I've gotten several requests to do this, but I had one specifically, and I received an email, a private message from one of my subscribers, and it was just really detailed about this topic, and so it kind of really made me think about it. And so I'm just going to read what Katrine had written to me. And so she said, what I'm wondering is, what if your children in 10 to 15 years' time think that it's a huge problem or really weird that so many people watch them online without them knowing about it? And then she was adamant that she just doesn't think there's anything wrong with it, but she was just wondering, you know, about that, like how we feel about our children being in our videos. I know a lot of us with mommy channels or family channels, a lot of our videos do feature our kids. So I kind of, you know, wanted to sort of talk about that first before we sort of move into talking about safety as far as how to, you know, maintain your own safety with sharing your, you know, your life online on YouTube. So first we'll sort of talk about the children aspect of it, because I thought that was a really excellent question, and it's definitely something that I've thought of a lot in the past. So who should we start with? I don't want to start with you, Diana, because I always jump to you first because you're always on that side. Amy, you want to talk about that first, about how you feel about sharing your kids on YouTube?
You know, I have to say I never thought that far into the future. I just haven't. I never thought of that. But you know, you can always take the videos down, I suppose, if they have a big problem with it. But I don't know.
Do you feel like they're in a majority of your videos, or, you know, do you have, like, I mean, I think a lot of them are mostly
not necessarily
just you.
They're in it. It's me talking about them, you know, our journey with them of different things and our struggles. I don't know. It's a good point. I never really thought about that far down the road. If they'd
Do you think you'd be, like, upset, like, in 10 years if they said, you know, Mom, can you take all those videos down? They make me uncomfortable. How do you think you might feel in that time?
I don't know. I might have to convince them that it's okay. I don't know. I have to wait till that time comes. But Henry he's 5, and he knows he's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
He's 5, and he watches himself and says, "Oh, show me on YouTube. I want to say hi." So he kind of gets it. But,
yeah. How about you, Leah? Leah's on mute.
It is something I was on mute. It is something I think about, especially more recently now that Asley is getting a little bit older. And I do think about, that's one reason I quit talking as much about like our son's illness and Asley having epilepsy as well. Because I wanted to wait until they're a little bit older, and I kind of figured out how much I wanted to share. Like, I want to share it because I want to raise awareness. But at the same time, you know, if they get older and they don't necessarily want those things known about them, then I do kind of worry about that. But in general, I just try to be, I guess, minimize the time that they're in front of the camera as much as possible. And if they're in there, make sure it's not something that's going to give out direct information about, like, where they're at. Like, if they're at preschool or something, make sure I'm not showing their preschool so there's no danger to them. I've never really thought as much about them wanting them taken down, though, later on, maybe. But like, in the sense of health issues, I have thought about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Sandra? How do you feel about that?
It's something I actually think about a lot. My oldest son is 10, So I started a few years, well, what was it, 3 years ago, and he was in quite a few of my videos, and as he's getting older, he's kind of like, that's not cool. You know, like, I don't want to be in it all the time. So I leave it up to him whether he wants to be in the current ones or not, and he really doesn't care at this point about the older ones. My concern is once it's on the internet, they say once it's out there forever, you know, even though it's mine, I can take down my videos, but they're always there. So I just try to be mindful and think about things as down the road when he's a teenager, is he going to be embarrassed by this, or, you know, is this going to really bother him or cause problems for him in the future, or for my other kids as well. So that's kind of, it's something I think about. So it's just a touchy subject. It's a tricky subject to think about too, because I don't know how he's going to feel, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because you have like the oldest child, I think, out of all of us right now. And what about like your son's friends at school? Do they know that like his mom is on YouTube? Like, do you think about that like social aspect of it? Like, are they like sort of looking? Do his friends know you're on YouTube? I guess number one. Do they talk about that or even understand what that means at age 10? I think that they probably would, right?
Yes, they definitely know all about YouTube. But they have one close friend that knows that I do YouTube, because Trevor and Parker kind of think it's cool and they like to share it, and I kind of try to tell them not to go around telling everybody, because, well, then everybody knows their business and I don't know. But yeah, their closest friend knows and he thinks it's cool and fun and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I guess it's good that they still like think it's cool, and that's a good thing. Yeah, I know my daughter's 6, and she still tells people. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the topic, there's certain videos where they're like, no, I don't want to be in that. That's lame, you know.
Right. How about you, Diana? I know you have 2 daughters, and you have them in your videos because you've done daily videos and everything, so they're pretty prominent.
Right.
How do you
Yeah,
feel?
I agree. It is a tricky subject, and I have thought about this a lot, especially having all girls, and you know, just what are they going to think about in the future, and just trying to protect them because it is out there. My general rule of thumb, just that I try to use, is that if it's something that I wouldn't want myself shown doing, I don't show them doing it. So because of that rule of thumb, I never show them potty training. I never show them in the bathtub. I never show, you know, moments like that that I wouldn't want myself shown. That's my general rule of thumb that I start with. And then beyond that, I have thought a lot about, like, in the future, if they decided it wasn't for them, I mean, I would have to pull my videos down. I mean, that's just... But right now, I mean, Bella's 4. She's very enthusiastic about it also. I mean, she'll come over and she'll want to watch, you know, herself on there, so she gets that aspect of it. And the videos, like the Disney videos, like she'll ask to watch them, so that part's fun. So it's just a matter of that fine line of how much is too much. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same. Like, I also really have thought a lot about it, and I've said in the past that with my channel, I try really hard to like make it sort of a focus on me and my experience as a mom, and not necessarily on my kids, even though they're in the videos quite often, like in the background a lot. And you know, as you said, you know, someone said, you know, I do talk about them, but I try not to talk about them exactly. It's kind of like confusing, but I talk about me and my experience as a mother to them, as opposed to what specifically is happening with them. But it is really like a gray area sometimes, because obviously, you know, I remember vlogging about little D starting kindergarten and how I felt about that, but then, you know, I'm sort of talking about her, and she was there in the video, sort of talking about how she felt about starting, and it is something, you know, that I hope that they wouldn't, you know, feel ashamed, because I try to be really respectful, like you were saying, Diana, about what I put up, and make sure it's something that I feel that they wouldn't be embarrassed about, you know, in the future. But, you know, as teenagers, a lot of times kids are embarrassed about anything.
Anything.
You know? So it is really,
I just think we have the birth of these kids, or I do. I have the birth of all 3 of my kids on YouTube. I mean, I don't know what they'll think of that in 15 years. I don't know.
That's true, and I'm approaching that coming up, and I had planned to, you know, I want to film it, but I didn't, I don't have, right now I don't have that for, you know, any of the other kids, because I started vlogging after that point. But if you have birth videos up and all of that, how are they going to?
Not only birth videos, but from the second, I mean, infant all the way through, I mean, a lot of us share our kids all the way through, you know.
Right.
age, all their
The only
ages,
thing that like I think
milestones.
of is like politics. Like, what if one of your children decide they want to go into politics? And I don't know which one of you said it, Sandra, maybe you, but how it's out there always on the internet, even if you take it down. But that's sometimes I think about like, oh my goodness, what? I mean, I don't think that's going to happen where they'd want to run for president, but would that impact them in a negative way? Any of the videos I put up that have them in it, is that something that would, hurt their campaign? I'd be really shocked if my kids wanted to go into politics. You just never know.
But you don't.
Yeah.
If they did go into politics, you don't have their names out there.
Right. That's something that I do is
so
I use nicknames. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they can find anything.
Exactly.
They can find everything.
They would know it was them, most likely as years go on that I continue doing this. Just you can recognize their faces, and that's why I hope anything I put up wouldn't be something that would be damaging in any way to them. But yeah, so.
One of the ones that we. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, Jessica the Mommy Archives is here. She says, "Hi, ladies. Wish I could be on with y'all tonight."
I know.
Aw.
Yes. So good to see
That's
you.
no fun.
And Katie is here.
Hello. Yay.
Yes.
It looks like Samantha too is here. Yay.
Oh,
Hello.
good, Samantha.
Okay, now who was fighting to speak first? Diana, was that you?
No, I was just going to say, crank for president. What would that be like?
Crank for president.
Or something? That was all I was going to say.
Right. Oh, it could totally work. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then Sandra, you were going to say something? Go ahead.
The one topic we were on the fence about putting out there publicly was with Trevor and his autism, and we weren't sure if we were going to share that or, what that was like. What ended up being the deciding factor is we are so open about it in our life, and he is so open about it, and his friends know about it, and I thought, well, if all of us are just so open about it in our regular life, then I felt it was okay there too. And I thought, well, it could help with awareness, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And that's when I decided, okay, well, we can put that out there, but it's something we talked with him about before we put it out there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, one of the things, one of the people that I follow very closely is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's done a lot of talks talking about privacy and how privacy is sort of dead and how everything is out there now with social media. And as time goes on, I've talked about this in the past, but how like the more time that goes on, the more we are all out there, and you really just have to, like, we are becoming as a society and in the world more and more small town. And so for me, I do think that our children are going to be very heavily involved in social media, most likely. It'd be very unusual for them to not be on social media at all. And so the best thing is just be who you are and be yourself and be authentic. And when putting ourselves out there, and also maybe our children in a respectful way, they most likely are going to be putting themselves out there anyway. And I've heard a lot of talk about how in the future resumes are going to be blogs, which is why I've purchased all my kids' names as websites, the domain names, because there's not going to be paper resumes. Your resume will be online on your specific website. And so I think about that too, and how we are just losing privacy in general. And of course, we don't want to be showing anything that's not good of our children. As far as I try to be very careful about potty training and things like that. I know we've talked, I don't want to show them, in anything that would be, I want to be as discreet as possible with them and be respectful. But they probably will have their lives out there anyway, most likely in the future. So it's something that kind of gives me some comfort when I hear some of that from some forward thinkers who talk about that kind of stuff. And oh my gosh, we have all these comments that just refreshed on my screen.
Lots of people, good topic tonight, that's for sure.
Well, and one thing that I try to do too is the videos that I specifically put out that has, especially Asley now that she's older and she can kind of participate in tag videos, are things that even if later on she felt uncomfortable having out publicly, that if I pulled those down, it's still memories, like the makeup tag and the this and that tag. Those are things that are fun for her to look back on. So I want to keep those moments, but even if I had to pull them off of YouTube, they're still there for her to watch back later on.
Yeah. You just private them or something, yeah.
Exactly. So we'll say hi to some of our friends here. It looks like we got PJ Mommy is here. Couldn't find the link. It's on the Facebook group. Okay, and let's see. We got Bethany. Same. She said same thing here about no potty, no bath. Yep. Yeah. I try to be careful because of predators, and that is why I use nicknames. I know we can talk about that too, about using actual names versus nicknames, and I've definitely said my kids' real names in early videos, so they're out there if somebody wants to try to find them. They're in some old videos, but I kind of had the problem where, my family, my immediate family members were really like worried about that because my children are so young, and like what if someone sees them, and we live in a very populated area, and what if someone sees them on like a playground and they start calling their given first name, and then they say, hey, your mom sent us to come get you, and because they're so young, I was really concerned that maybe they would be, like more willing. I just feel like there's some power in a name, and if someone knows their name, it might, because they're so little, they might kind of trust that person and go with them, which was my reason for using the nicknames that we do use on YouTube. But I know lots of people use real, given names and feel okay with it because I guess your last name's not out there, and you maybe don't have really unique names. Leah, your names are kind of unique, I think. How do you feel about that with your names?
Yeah, they're very unique, especially like if you had, that's one reason I don't mention Asley's first name, because Asley is not her first name, so I don't mention her first name. I don't think I've ever mentioned Ezra's middle name, and then Kaylin's full name is out there, and it's unique as well, so it is something I do worry about. And when I used to blog before YouTube, before I even knew about YouTube, I did use nicknames for them in my blog, and so it's one thing I think back on if I'd started originally and known that I was going to continue doing it like publicly and not just for our family, that I probably would have either used the name that they don't use, like use Ezra's middle name for him and Asley's first name for her, or something. I'm not sure I would have put their unique names out there.
Yeah, I think it's good to really think on it if you can before you start your channel, like whether or not, which name you want to put out there. And I think though as your kids get older, like maybe for you, Sandra, like it's not, I mean, I don't think I'd be as concerned as they get older, because then obviously they have more awareness about strangers, and I'd feel a little bit safer as they age. But when they're just so little, like mine are, they're 2 and also, just 6, so I kind of felt like concerned about that. But I know yours are young, Diana. How do you feel about that?
Well, I was the same way when I was just blogging. When I started out writing, it was long before I did videos, and I used actual nicknames for them. They were Cupcake and Peanut, and that's what I referred to them for the first year that I blogged. That was just their names on there. And I don't know, it just it hit a point where, especially when you're doing the day in the lives, I felt like I couldn't get around using some version related to their name. So that's how I ended up getting away from. I couldn't see myself saying Cupcake and Peanut all day long. I just couldn't see it happening.
That's how it was for me as well. In my very early vlogs, I think when I was just doing like just random vlogs here and there, I still used Asley and when Ezra was born, his first nicknames on there. But like the same way as we started doing day in the life and more collab videos, I was like, I can't keep this up for forever. And I don't mention my husband's name very often, if ever, anymore. But his name was early on when I had other day in the life videos out. So I try to like keep like bits and pieces out there, but not everything to piece back together.
Exactly, and definitely not everything in one video. I think that's kind of like, don't lay out everybody's names, your last name, your location. I mean, that's one of the big reasons. I know we're kind of going off on a tangent, but that's one of the reasons I don't do house tours. I mean, I think just having that massive amount of information in one video too is,
Yeah, I get asked a lot what my husband does for work, and not necessarily where does he work, but what does he do for work, and I won't even go into specifics on that. I just give a really general blanket answer because it's not that I'm being rude and I don't want to answer you, it's just I don't know who they are necessarily, and it's just not something I'm comfortable with sharing.
Same here. I answer with a, generic overview of what he does, and I don't think it's pertinent for me to say specifically what he does, where he works, and that sort of thing. Because it's too tied back to our location.
After hearing you guys all talk, it makes me think, oh my gosh, maybe I put too much out there. Because I have done videos taking the kids to now I feel like I can't say his name. To Andy's work, and I've had people comment saying, "Oh, I know where that is," because they live around here, So
I maybe get a little bit of a false sense of security because we live in, I mean, the Phoenix area is just massive, and all the suburbs are connected to Phoenix. It's huge. And I think if I lived in a smaller town, I would be a little nervous because it's more recognizable. Here, I mean, most everything looks the same. It's very cookie cutter. The stores all look the same. But I would be a little bit more nervous, I think, if I lived in a smaller community.
Yeah, we live in a huge, I mean, it's, like you said, Phoenix. It's just huge. So.
Yeah.
And he works, you know, 45 minutes away from us. So I didn't think, when I was filming it, I thought, well, I mean, you know,
yeah,
where I live.
I thought that when I actually just watched Samantha Happily Housewives. Things like tour of Washington. It's a tag she just started. I'm getting ready to do, and I thought if I did a tag of my immediate area, like I could give you 2 or 3 landmarks, and you would just zone in right on my house. So I'm gonna have to like branch out to the nearest city. So I think like for her, lives in Washington, for like you were saying, several of you live in big cities. You don't have to be as specific. But if you live in a really small town, like some of you were mentioning, it is harder to do that, and I have to really watch. Like landmarks or areas or even signs of businesses in the back of my videos because they're very specific to this area.
Yeah. I feel though, like generally, like truly in my heart, like overall, people are mostly good. And if somebody really wanted to find me, they're gonna find me, even if I like was absolutely 100% careful. And so I try to like not get overly paranoid, you know, because I do believe that the majority of the world is good. But there are certain things that I definitely don't, you know, show. We don't show the front of our house. And I try to be very careful with that. License plate numbers, of course, addresses. I know I've seen some vlogs where people were sharing, you know, their budgeting or bills, and they actually were flashing some paperwork that had their address on it. Because then you're just sort of making it too easy. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really making it too easy for a potential predator to actually, you know, come or send you something or show up at your house.
Or even just other people looking it up just because they're nosy, you know? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah. So I think you have to have some common sense there. Go ahead, you have something to say, Sandra?
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about a YouTuber flashing something by accident, I think that's also kind of, as a community, part of our job if we happen to see something like that, because the person who edited the video might not have even realized they put something in there, and I think not judgmental or anything like that, but to send them a little private message. Hey, did you know? Because I actually, one time, my son was wearing a school shirt, and I didn't get it up on YouTube, but through my editing, and I was playing it back my final time before I put it up, and I went, oh, shoot. In the background, of course, it was just a quick little second, but in the background I could see his school logo and everything, and I'm glad I caught it. But I think it's important for us as a community to kind of keep in check with other people, too. If you happen to see something, they might not even realize that they accidentally let it slip into their video.
Yeah, it's really easy to forget, you know, when you're at a hospital and your kids and you have these hospital, they put like 1 million hospital bracelets on you now. I mean, it's ridiculous. It took me hours to edit my video.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you said that for me.
I had to blur out everything. Yeah, even a second. Like, I paused my video. I had to reproduce my video so many times. It was ridiculous. But you could second and see on my bracelet our names and everything. So.
We ran into that when Ezra was in the hospital last year because I announced that he was in the hospital, just asking for prayer because it's so immediate. And then I went back like while he was in the hospital and took down so many videos because I was in like mama bear mode, you know, like don't mess with my baby. And I thought I've mentioned what hospital he goes to, and so it was a hospital attached to his clinic. And so I'm like, even though, I mean, I would hope that in that moment some weirdo would not come and stalk us, but that's just, you know, you're in that protect your kids mode because all this is happening. So I had to go back and take down a lot of that stuff that talks specifically about where we were located during that time. And I probably didn't need to do that, but I just felt like I needed to do it in that moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then same kind of thing like with the house tours. Like I agree sort of with Diana. Like I'm scared to do those unless we were moving. I know, Diana, you did yours when you were moving your house because you were leaving it, right? So I think you maybe your garage or something. But I get scared about that because I don't want people to know specifically where the kids' rooms are because then I feel like they sort of know the layout of our house. And then, you know, I get afraid they might, you know, be able to, if they actually were able to get into our home, they'd know specifically where to go to find the kids' rooms. And
all the entrances and exits, and I mean, it's like
you got it.
I don't know why that's never really concerned me. Like, thinking when I watch house tours and stuff, because
Yeah.
we have
I
like
know.
a
Because I
ranch
love to
style
watch
house.
them. That's the problem. They're so
Our street, every house looks the same. Like, you know, is the same layout. You know, a ranch house is a ranch house.
Ours is like that too. Like I said earlier, they're all cookie cutter. They're all the same layout. My neighbor's house is the exact same as mine. As is the exact same as the one 5 blocks from me.
Our whole area is
Yeah.
the same sort of older home. You know how it is. So that's why I've never really thought anything of it.
Yeah.
We have a ton of comments here, questions and stuff. So
Okay.
I don't even know where to start. With Katie and family maybe here. She said, what about as far as where you live and vlogging outside of your home? Do you try not to capture your outside surroundings, or do we talk about this sort of street signs so people can't figure it out? Yeah.
Like vlogging when you're driving, like some people have the camera attached in their car. We had one at one point. It broke now, but I was very cautious because I noticed when I would vlog, you could see street signs out my windows in my car. So if I ever did have that on, I wouldn't do it in my neighborhood and things like that. And if I'm outside, because I do some weather type videos where I'm doing it from my home, and I'm pretty cautious not to have signs unless I'm away from home when I'm doing them.
I think the givens would be definitely never show or my opinion would be not to show the front of your house and street signs in your neighborhood. And there was another one and I totally forgot it. But
like
the
your
front of
house number, yeah.
Yeah, your house number, yeah.
Well, I know, and Marie Bits and Clips had told me once as well in a conversation, she was saying things that you could Google Map as well, especially as you get larger. And I think a lot of the younger viewers, they want to be connected to you. It's just kind of, it seems, by me viewing YouTube, and if they could Google Earth and see exactly where you live and what's in your backyard, and they could compare your car to your vlogs, it might be easier to find your house if you don't live in a cookie cutter neighborhood. Because we don't, like it, you would definitely zoom right in our house and find us versus a whole, like looking through a whole neighborhood of maybe 500 houses trying to look for one house. So that's one thing I keep in mind too whenever I film. Even the kids outside playing on the swing set or something, I try to keep just one centralized location in the view instead of scanning the whole backyard where they could Google Earth it.
What do you mean Google Earth it? Like you just take a picture, or they take a picture from your vlog and they can Google that picture to see if it's anywhere else?
Well, if they figure out your address or
yeah, if they know your
city location.
Yeah.
They don't have to know your exact, especially for where I live. They could just kind of know the town we're in, and there's only so much area, and it would not take.
You must be in a tiny town. Oh my.
We're tiny.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I guess like if like Leah was saying before, like if they knew like a business nearby, and because it's a small town, they could just like basically sit there searching.
Call the post office to ask.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. Let's talk about
the fire department or the convenience store and just ask for it.
Yeah. So I really wanted to talk about like giveaways. We're talking about that briefly before we started the hangout. So if you are entering a giveaway, and as far as giving away your address and things like that, or if having a P.O. box too. Leah was talking about that. Like if she had a P.O. box, it would be pretty quick or easy to find her house. So Leah, you want to talk about that, like having a small town and maybe...
Yeah, I was just saying before the hangout, and I mentioned just saying there too, like you could go to so many places in our neighborhood and they know me by name. So, I grew up here, I worked at the convenience store in high school, so it's like so many people know me. I know that's not really a concern in larger cities or even in neighborhoods in larger cities. They're not, they don't know everyone that's on the street. So I do think about that whenever I give my address away for giveaways on YouTube or blogs. If it's someone that I don't know, or if it's like a new YouTuber who doesn't really have a lot of, and I'm not like saying only they would do this, but it does concern me a little bit more when it's kind of people that are just joining the community, because you worry about their intentions sometimes. And I'm putting out my address, specific address there, where you could come to the post office and find out exactly where I live. Versus like Phoenix, for example, if you went there, they may not know. You could have a post office box in Phoenix and it still be 30 minutes from your house, So I think that's something you have to worry about when you live in a smaller area.
Yeah. I think that's what I would try to do. As far as the P.O. boxes, my 2 rules of thumb as far as P.O. boxes go are anything to do with YouTube. If you're hosting a giveaway, absolutely 100% have a P.O. box to use as your return address. And then my other suggestion would be, if possible, don't have a P.O. box in the same place that you live. And I find that gives you that little bit extra peace of mind that it's not the same location that you live in. So, you're
Right,
not
like perhaps like
giving
if your
out.
spouse works like an hour away or you work an hour away from your hometown, you
Yeah.
could get the P.O. box there because then it's not close to your home, or even just like a couple towns over, even though it might be a pain to drive there, it's still better, which is what I do. You know, mine is several towns over from where I actually am living. So
That's how
so,
ours is.
yeah.
The one that we're
Mhm.
using for our YouTube stuff now is about half an hour to 45 minutes from us for
Mhm.
that exact reason.
Yep.
Looking back, I've been on YouTube a long time, many years, and I wish I did things differently. There's so many things I regret because way back we like a whole bunch of us exchange. I gave my address away just for like exchanging Christmas cards, and I was like, what was I thinking? And that was years ago. And I just think of all the people that have my address, and some of them aren't even my friends anymore. You know, they could just. I don't know. It's scary, and I need to get a PO box.
But
Definitely.
I
I
think
was
that's
thinking
like
the
an
same.
important like point, that friends thing too. I just wanted to say that, like, you know, it is, you know, you kind of watch someone and you are subscribed to them for a long time. You maybe have some interactions even just on Facebook, but I do think it's important to remember we are all still sort of cyber friends unless you actually, in this environment, I feel like I get a chance to actually meet everyone in like a live format and you really get a better feel because like it's you know, real time talking. But sometimes I think people forget that, and even like a year later after you've had some interactions, you still don't really know that person, and you know they're still a cyber friend. So like if you give out your address, you need to really, really make sure that's someone that you can 100% trust, that isn't going to
And
suddenly
even
sort
if
of.
you're not friends anymore, you still gotta trust them. You know. I
Exactly.
just
If they're
think,
not
you know,
friends. Yeah, what's going to
yeah.
happen if you have a falling out is that person going to still behave in a manner that, you know, you would hope that they would keep your private information still private. So that's really
Mhm.
important to think about. Yeah.
That is kind of good advice too for people who may be wanting to get on YouTube. Like Amy says, there might be things that she had regret, and me too. When I started, I never would have thought that. I'm getting close to about 2,000 now, which I know is still small compared to other people, but I never thought I'd have that many subscribers to begin with. So I really didn't think about this stuff in the beginning. So even if you don't think your channel's going to grow that much, or you're not sure if you're going to stick with it long term, it's a good thing to keep in mind at the very beginning before you even start your channel.
And the community has grown so big. You know, back then it was just a little group of us, and now it's just huge. It's so different. It's just different
Yeah,
than
every
it used to
day
be.
new moms are joining every single
Yeah.
day. Yeah, the
I mean,
mom
back
community
Yeah.
then
grows.
we didn't have a Facebook group. I mean, we didn't have the Facebook community. We didn't have Instagram and all that other stuff now. I mean, it's just changed a lot.
Hmm. And what about Amy? I really wanted you to share that story about how, as you know, mommy vloggers, or even when we have blogs, sometimes people reach out to us to do product reviews. And a lot of times when you first start out too, you get like those emails or, you know, private messages and you say, oh, they want to send me some things to review, and you get pretty excited, and you know, you just might instantly send your address to that
Oh,
person. So why don't
yeah.
you share your story?
I have a couple, but I'll just do the most recent one. Oh, it's so bad. I feel kind of embarrassed. But remember, I just had a baby. I have two other kids running around. I got an email saying they want me to review this product, and I was so excited about it. But I was cautious, and I was talking to Dana about it before I even sent the message. I was excited about it, and I Googled it. I even went on LinkedIn or whatever to the
Hmm.
person who sent me it, and I saw the account, and I thought, this is totally, you know, got to be right. So I sent my address, not thinking anything, and like a week or 2 weeks went by, and I just got like, oh my gosh, I just gave my address. I thought anybody could have messaged me on YouTube with this little spiel, and they would have my address, and I wasn't thinking.
Yeah,
But
even
I
when you're
felt,
trying to be careful, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I
Hmm.
was, and I knew in the back of my mind I shouldn't do this, but I was so sure. I was like, this is for sure the real thing. And so the weeks went by, and I emailed them freaking out. I sent them an email, and they emailed me, but they apologized and everything since. But it was a real company. I did get the product, and I will be doing a review, but I will never give my address out again, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I don't think you should be embarrassed. I think that happens a lot to a lot of us, and that happened to me too about a year ago, where I got a Facebook private message, and I checked out the Facebook, you know, page, and then I went to the website, and it was for a cloth diaper subscription service, and I was like, it looks perfect, it looks fine, and I gave my address, and then I never received it. Never received it,
Oh,
and I just was
Oh.
having a complete panic attack. Who did I send my address to? and it's really scary. It really is. And, I've checked multiple times, and I think I still never got it, but I'm pretty positive that she just forgot, like just kind of like probably, like send it out to a bunch of people and then never sent it. But I still always think about that, and it was a huge learning experience for me too when that happened. I was like, I'm never going to do that again. So it's, send what, even if you, want to send your, your partner's work address or your mother's or a work, an actual company or a PO box is still better than your home address, because obviously workplaces change over time, and usually there's security at those places. So any other address other than
I'll just say the other thing. Recently, I got a message saying I won a giveaway, and it was a big YouTuber, and I went to the message, and then I glanced over, and they had 0 subscribers. Well, this is a huge YouTuber that said that I won this giveaway, and thankfully it was not real. But anybody, it's just you got to really, really watch.
Oh, right. I remember that. They try to fabricate a bigger YouTuber's name. So
yeah,
you
it was
think
the
it's
same
coming
name.
from them. Yep.
It was the same name, and what caught me quickly, it was a picture of them, of their family, of the family that I watch, but it was a different picture than they usually have on, their thumbnail, and I recognized that thumbnail was different, and that's what got me my eye over to
you were
that.
paying attention. At least you're paying attention to that.
But I wasn't going to give my address anyway because I didn't want what was the giveaway item. It was for a child. It was
that kind of like tipped it off for you, because you were like, wait a minute, I don't even remember entering this giveaway. I think you told me. You're like, I don't remember entering.
Sometimes they say if you just comment below, you are entered, and I typically comment on people's videos. So.
Yeah.
I've had that happen, but it was not with a well-known YouTuber. It was like some random name where I know someone subscribed to like a small amount of people that I watch regularly that I actually would enter a giveaway for, and I was like, I have never seen like this person's channel before. The same thing, I clicked and they had 0 subscribers, and they had went through and commented on like 50 people's channels with the same exact message, just spamming, trying to get people's addresses. So I'm assuming it was probably like spam mail or some type of, not necessarily somebody trying to track people down, but just trying to get addresses for spam issues.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of like, obviously what we're all saying is do your due diligence and do your research, and be very careful if someone is asking you for your personal information, and try to stop and think about it for a while before you quickly send, because it is so easy to be excited about something and just send back your address. And
it took me 6 years to learn that. Oh my gosh, so bad.
Well, and I'll say too, and I know that Dana and I have talked about this before, is like she was saying, most of the world is good. Most of the moms in the community are awesome. They're wonderful people who are sharing their lives the same way as we are. And your neighbors could be the weirdo who stalks your family. Unfortunately,
exactly.
Yeah. But there's so many people. You could run into someone at the grocery store that decides that they're going to, follow your kid around or something like that. Hopefully that won't happen to any of us. So I try to keep that in mind, that just because I put videos out there, there's such a small portion of people out of the entire world that actually watches our videos, So, but yet we run into that many people in a daily shopping trip normally. So I just try to keep that in mind and not be too paranoid, but like you were saying, just be mindful of what we are sharing and not just repetitively being like, here's our address, here's our house number, and be a little bit more safe and mindful thinking about it, but not paranoid to the point where I'm like terrified of it constantly.
Right. Exactly. And I think we've all heard one bad story, at least, I'm sure, and that's kind of what scares. I know I've talked about this with some other previous guests, like about some other YouTubers who did have some bad things happen, and then when that does happen, you see a wave of YouTubers shutting down their channels or removing all their videos, and, but that's one story out of, thousands, and, majority of the time everything's okay, and you always, of course bad things do happen sometimes, but you just have to have faith, and this is a decision that we all make, and then do our best to, use common sense and be as careful as we can. So, is there any comments that we want to look at before we wrap up? Okay.
But it's pretty much saying what we said, that they agree, and there's a lot of good comments tonight.
Yeah, here's from
a lot of highs, people saying hi.
I think there was a comment on Facebook, if I remember correctly, and I don't remember who put it there, a question on, as far as privacy goes, filming in public when there's other children or other people in public, and how you handle that.
That was a good one.
That is a good one.
because I know when I go, I try not to the best I can, but I do know at times there have been other people in my videos. I try not to get faces of other people. I try to respect other people's privacy as well, but it does happen in public.
Right. That's what I try. If I go to a personal event, say we're going to a birthday party of a friend or something like that, I've limited it now to where I'm either not videoing or I'm only getting my kids in the shot. And I no longer, when I first started out and I was a smaller channel, I used to have people over for play dates, and I would always check it out with the parents that I was good friends with beforehand, like, you know, do you care if I do a video? And she's into photography, so that was no problem. Now I no longer even ask. I will not put any other children on my channel.
That's how I am too.
The only thing I've made an exception for recently is Disney World, because it was like thousands of people. There's people in the background.
And you're at Disney World.
I'm at Disney World. I can't do anything about
house.
it. That's the only thing recently I've made an exception for. But
that was like at my we went to the splash pad the other day, and I did a day in the life video on that, and there was no getting around it. There were hundreds of people there. You know, if I wanted to film anything that day, it would have had to been in my house. I couldn't film outside the house. We do have a pretty busy area we live in. It's just, I try to be like up close to my kids as possible to try to minimize who's in my video, and like I said, if I can avoid getting their faces, that's what I try to do. But.
Right. Yeah, same.
I do the same that Di said too. I won't videotape if it's someone that I know personally, because that's an invasion of their privacy. And once again, if you're led back to me, you can be led back to them because they're close to us. But my most recent one I'm thinking about is like Wilderness of the Smokies. To get Asley in different clips of that, there's no way I could avoid people in the background. And even if you were led back to us, you're not going to know those people because I have no idea who those people are. So I'm not as worried about it in public situations as private parties or my house. Like I was babysitting at one point early last year for a little bit before Ezra went in the hospital, and so I couldn't do daily vlogs. There was no way I could just vlog my kids without putting him in there, so I just chose not to do that. But I definitely wouldn't include people that I know, but I think people in the background, like you were saying, Disney World, there's no way of avoiding that unless you just want to completely not get those memories.
Yeah.
I guess I put like birthday party, like our own birthday parties and our family, and we don't tell our family about YouTube, or we don't talk about it, and I never ask them if they want to be on, like my dad and stuff. He's always on my videos, but he has no idea, so I guess I don't think about that. Probably not a good thing, but their family, they probably would understand.
There's another good question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you guys what you thought of that. Do you have people in your videos, you know, family that don't know about YouTube? And
my family doesn't.
Yeah. My family knows about it, but I don't put anybody in. Mm-hmm. My sister's been in my videos, but she is, wants to be, and I just kind of, I don't, unless they specifically, are completely aware of what I do and they want to be. And I have filmed birthday parties in the past, but again, like you guys were all saying, I was just stayed close to the kids' sort of faces or the cake, or people's feet. So it was like they didn't actually ever have their face.
You don't ever see them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom's in mine.
Yeah.
Your what?
My mom's in mine occasionally, and she totally knows what I do. And
I think as long as
I
they
ask
know.
her prior too. I'm like, are you okay today? Do you feel like you're looking okay? Like, you don't mind if I film you? And she's fine with it.
Yeah, I think it's like a closeness factor too. I would never want to have to actually ask anyone, so it's like either I'm really, really close with them and I know that they'd be fine with it, or I just don't have them in it. But
right.
I don't know what question you had, Diana. There was one here from Samantha that was good too about last names. Is that
was the same question in
Okay,
the group.
good. Yeah, I read your mind. I thought this was good. So this will, I guess, be our last question because I know we went over on time and I try to be careful with that. But she said, what about last names? I have shown it on a product before but never said it or made a big deal of it. What are your thoughts? And I guess I'll sort of start with that because my last name is out there and I say it and it's all over the place and I'm okay with it. And it was a big decision in the beginning when I was starting out, but for me, because everything I do is sort of, I have a podcast and then I have my blog, and then so my name is out there because it's sort of it's a business for me. So that's why my name is out there, but also because my last name is very generic. And in the Philadelphia area, there's probably thousands of, people with the same exact name. So because of that, it doesn't really concern me. I think if my last name was really unique, then I'd be a little bit more careful and maybe use a pen name for my business. But I really want to be transparent and completely honest with my entire diaper dirt community and with my audience, so that's why I have my name out there. But I don't think any of you ladies have your last name out there, so I mean,
that's
it is
one
kind
thing.
of, yeah.
I don't even want to like share it even with friends. Usually, my last name. It's just I don't want that. That's really important to me. I don't want my last name out there.
Yeah. So if it's
I do something right. I give my address away, but not my last name.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't gonna say it.
Yeah, like even like when it's bad.
Mine's a
last name.
Amy Dreamflight 6000 is what I have. I give them, but I give them my address.
When we went to the Wilderness of the Smokies, she had written Leah Raising and then marked out Raising and put my last name on there because I guess for my email conversations with her, Raising Bushes was my last name, and she realized while writing it that's not a real last name, so she marked it out. Had rewritten our last name on, so I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pretty rare last name. I think if I Googled my first and last name together, I think it comes up and says there is only 2 in the U.S.
Oh my God.
So I would definitely not put my last name out there at all. I don't even want to put out my last letter of my first letter of my last name.
Yeah, I don't put my first letter out either.
No.
I've Googled mine and I don't come up, thankfully. I come up under Leah Raising Bushes, but Leah and last name I don't come up, I don't think. So, or at least I didn't a while back. Hopefully it'll stay that way.
I have a generic last name, so.
Oh, you do? You have a generic one, Diana?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've made a point in covering it up, like on embroidered things and things like, so I'm not like specifically like holding it up like this, but I know that there's been a couple times, it's not a big deal because it's generic, but.
Did we lose her?
Oh, no, it just froze up for a second.
Oh,
Good
okay.
old Google Plus.
Oh, me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My computer's probably dying because it's got too many files on it.
When I first started YouTube, I was working full-time, and if you Google my first and last name, even if you Google it now, it comes directly to where my location where I work and my profile on the work website. And it shows all my work stuff. And it's just, I guess, as time goes on, that's going to be just what companies do, and that's just...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We even had a picture in the background on our wall a while back, and it had our last name. It wasn't huge. It wasn't like this is our name, but it was just a picture in the background. I ended up taking it down and putting it in our bedroom because I never film in our bedroom, so that way I'm not accidentally filming it. Because yeah.
It's so interesting to me because I think as women too that plays a big part. Because I listen and read a lot from male, business owners, and they don't seem concerned about sharing their last name, but I feel like as women it's a little bit, or when we have young kids, it kind of is a little bit scarier, and we're all talking about how, like, you don't want when you Google your name, you don't want it to come up, but it's like I hear a lot of people who are fighting to get their names to come up on the first page of Google search engines, so it's kind of not lost on me. That's very interesting. It's such a difference, in how we feel, about that, in comparison.
I know we're almost done, but with your first, you're not afraid to have your first and last name out there, but when you're not worried about people finding you at your workplace.
No.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really concern me. Like, honestly, I think if somebody wanted to find me at my workplace, fine. Hey, how you doing? And
or even just to know where you work, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's just because maybe, just like Sandra was saying, I live in the Philadelphia area and I work in Philadelphia, and it's such a populated area, and there's so many other people with my name, and I actually work in very public places, and so I kind of feel if somebody were to find me or recognize me or meet me there, I just would be like, hey, how you doing? Like, I don't really... and if somebody was going to be a stalker and try to follow me home, well, then they're a stalker, no matter what. And, that's a police issue. And then that's where I would go with that. So it's kind of, So I try not to, I don't really feel too worried about that too much. My biggest 100% concern is always the kids, and that's like what I'm mostly worried about, not necessarily myself, is just the kids because they're so little, and I wouldn't want anyone to ever, try to accost them when I'm not around, or, try to, do something to them, and that's my biggest concern, not necessarily me. So if someone found me at work, it would be whatever because my kids aren't there, so it's just me. But yeah.
I had one more thing to add. My husband actually has some coworkers that, in a roundabout way, through their wives or whatever, found my channel. So that's one other aspect of privacy I have to think about is, does my husband really want his buddies at work knowing about, back when I was breastfeeding? I was like, well, that kind of might be a little embarrassing for my husband, for his coworkers to be, watching, and they kind of tease him a little bit and be like, so I watched The Thrifty Mommy last night, and I just have to keep that in the back of my head too, like, does Chris really want them to know this stuff? So.
Yeah, it's a good point. My husband's always sharing my videos with all his coworkers. Yeah.
My last name is generic, and my first name is not unique. So I'm not exactly concerned about someone finding me, but the same thing as you were saying, Dana, is that I'm more concerned about my kids. And then, like you said, knowing the full name. If they know my last name, they know their full name.
Right.
And I don't think it's very easily searchable. The last name's very generic. So that is a concern. If it was just me and I was without the youngest, the young children are being as young as they are and as vulnerable as they are, then I probably would share my full name for the same reasons that you listed.
Yeah, and as they get older, it'll be less for me a concern because we talk about it a lot, It's always a concern with anyone, like with your kids, but once they get older, we'll be talking a lot.
We should do a video hangout about safety with our kids, like not YouTube related, but it's for strangers, and that would be a really good topic.
Yes.
That's a good topic.
Yeah, teaching about strangers, absolutely.
Because I know my 5-year-old would go, he just says, hey, he would, too friendly is what he is.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, all right, well, I'm getting like super hot. I'm always on my third floor for these hangouts, and it's so hot up here. Always by the end, I'm like, but it's also past our time. So thank you to everybody who was here with us in the comments, and we will try to get in there and answer the comments after the hangout. For me, usually it's at least 11 p.m. at night after our hangouts wrap up, so usually I try the day after. But thank you again to Diana. Go check out her channel at Being Mommy with Style, and Amy, Dreamflight 6000. And then Leah, do you want to shout out all the places people can come and find you?
Oh, where can they not find me? Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of those, all the above. It's all Raising Bushes, BUSHS, no E in there.
Okay. And you have a blog too, right? What's your blog?
Yeah, forgot about that. It's raisingbushes.blogspot.com.
Perfect. And then how about you, Sandra? Where can people find you?
On YouTube, it is The Thrifty Mommy. On Instagram, it's, what is it? The Thrifty Mommy, I think. Just the letter S, and The Thrifty Mommy. On Facebook, it is Sandra, The Thrifty Mommy.
Okay. And you don't have a blog, do you? Do you have
Nope.
a? Okay. And everybody's
I am not computer savvy, so that's stepping out of my comfort zone.
And then Pinterest. Don't forget about Pinterest.
Pinterest, I know. Yes, and we'll be having that special hangout all about Pinterest on June 12th with Cynthia Sanchez, and I'm so excited about that. She's going to teach us all about Pinterest for YouTubers, so don't forget to put that in your calendars and don't miss that. It's going to be super fun. But everybody's channel links will be in the description box, so you can go and check there and subscribe to everybody. And I am Dana, Miss Diaper D, and I am at diaperdirt.com and also the Diaper Dirt podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being here tonight, and we'll talk to you in the next hangout. So, bye.
Bye.
Bye.